And here we go. We are going to dissect my article for Florida Today with my Muppet partner, Tim Walters. Yes, every time we get together, we do the little Muppet dance. And we're going to talk about the value of fathers. So fasten your seatbelts. We're going to learn and grow together. Here we go. I hear the music playing. Time to dance. Come on, Muppet guy.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com.
Good volume, Brian.
Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are new to the Lillian McDermott radio show, the purpose of the show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now today, a whole month has gone by, cannot believe it, but we get to dissect my latest or my newest article on Florida Today with my favorite, one of my favorites. I have to clarify that because I do have another one that's a wonderful favorite of mine, editor, and article writer, columnist for Florida Today as well, of his own column called Daddy Duty. I call him my Swiss Army knife because he does so much for Florida Today. So know that my article is coming out tomorrow. It's already online, and you can go to floridatoday.com if you wanted to learn a little bit more, or I'll have it in my website at whenyouneedafriend.com pretty soon. And we're going to talk about the value of fathers. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Tim Walters is back to do just that. Welcome, Tim. We missed you last month.
Yeah, how you doing, Lillian? I'm back. Do you think people get the poltergeist reference, or is that just too old nowadays?
You know, I don't know. I even it's amazing how old things are coming back.
That's true.
Cycling. And so, you know, you'll hear someone who's much younger say a line from a movie, and I'll go, wait a minute, like Home Alone? Home Alone is that's got to hurt. You know, those little sayings that, I heard that somewhere. But, one of the things that I'm just really upset about is that The Jerk, I'm the only one that quotes The Jerk. Anyone else out there loves the movie The Jerk? I love Steve Martin. And so anyway, enough about that. We just went off on a tangent there, or should I say, when I say we, I mean I. So Tim, welcome back, and I'm glad that you're back. So share a little bit about your background and why you are so passionate about editing my work.
Oh, well, Lillian, as always, I appreciate you having me on. And so I am an editor at Florida Today. I handle sports. I handle a health section. I handle our visuals, so our photos and video and TV operation. And of course, you always come on and do our TV show now once a month with our good friend Rob Landers, who's our producer. Yeah. And so, but I've been doing the health section now for probably close to 3 years at Florida Today. And I just have a really good passion and a sense for bringing that to people. I was raised by a mom who was a nurse for almost 40 years before retiring. And so, I really understand the health industry, and it's really strong around here. And, health being mental health, physical health, all the different things. So I have lots of wonderful columnists, and you being, obviously one of my great columnists. Your column comes out on the second Thursday of every month on in our print section, and it's always online the Tuesday before. So right now you can go check it out at floridatoday.com/health. Look for Lillian's article, the headline, The Value of a Father. And, we just love having you write for us. So thank you, Lillian.
Thank you. And you get to see my dad and I sharing a special moment in the article, which I am so grateful. Like last month, we had my mom and my daughter, Brittany, featured in the article. So you guys used that. I don't know where you found it, but you guys used it. I thought, you know what? And I gave my mom a copy of it. I framed it and I gave it to her. And then this month, I went back and forth. Should I do an article about fathers? But I wanted to do the article in the perspective of a son and a father, and I was outdone there. I knew that I had no expertise, so I sent out a survey, an unscientific survey, and my dad gets to be in the front cover of the article, and what I'm planning on doing is giving it to him as a frame as well. So, Tim, thank you so much for allowing me those little privileges to highlight my parents on my articles.
Sure, no problem. And, a dad is such a special person, so it's really cool that you get to be able to do that for him. So, happy Father's Day to your dad, and he's obviously raised a great daughter, and, you do a great job for us.
Thank you. So you call me the grab bag of columnists that you have. So what did you think this time as you pulled out my article from the internet?
So this one finally made sense. You did Mother's Day last month, Father's Day this month. Making sense, meaning I never know what I'm going to get. But this time when I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought it was just a great article, kind of, brings us into your past a little bit, tells us a little bit about your childhood, which is always neat to learn a little bit more about someone that we become familiar with, on the radio or, that in the newspaper, that type of thing. So I just thought it was a lot of fun reading through it, and then being also a part of your survey.
Yes, you are one of my unofficial surveyors. And we're going to continue our conversation about my next article on Florida Today with my favorite editor, one of my favorite editors, Tim Walters of Florida Today. And we will continue our conversation about the value of fathers when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Okay, so I don't know if I told you this, but it took me a while to read the article to my mom. My mom is at this point in her life where every 10 minutes we have the same conversation. So my mom's been diagnosed with dementia. Although, the perspective, and maybe someday I'll write about it, but I love having the same conversation with my mom. I found the value of it. And I remember reading the article to her and my mom getting very emotional, and I got emotional, and it took me a while to get through it. And I knew that after 10 minutes, I had to go back and reread the article again. But, it's the different stages. And I still want to say this to you because I don't know if you heard the show last month, but I wanted to thank you for allowing me to add the fourth stage, the fourth step or phase in parenting. I'm sure there might be more, but that fourth phase that I discovered while I was on the show, while you were taking care of Isabella, I'm so grateful that you allowed me to add to the article.
Oh, sure. No problem. To go back about your mom, I don't know if you saw the work that we had over the course of April into May, but Britt Kennerly, one of our longtime writers, she did a project over the course of a week called The Long Goodbye. And it was about her mother's battle with dementia and Alzheimer's. And so her mom had been diagnosed a couple of years ago. So she had gone downhill and has been in a home. And, obviously a very tragic story. So Britt went up for Mother's Day, left on a Friday to spend Mother's Day with her mother, and her mom died the day before Mother's Day. So, and she wrote all about it, and it was just the word, and, just the way she wrote it. And, it gives you the look inside the caretakers for, the children of a person with dementia. So you kind of get that other perspective. But if you haven't seen that, go on our website.
Check it out.
Just look up The Long Goodbye.
Britt Kennerly.
Yeah, Kennerly.
Yeah, okay, got it here. Would love to check it out. I know that a lot of, as we talk about on the Lillian McDermott radio show, we do not believe that we have to get old and demented and with depression or diabetes. I don't believe that for one bit. But our parents can be great teachers, can't they, about what could happen. And here we go.
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we always learn and grow together. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and I am excited that today we get to dissect my next Florida Today article with Tim Walters of Florida Today. Tim, so as you grabbed out the article called The Value of Fathers, or The Value of a Father, I don't know which you called it. So what was your first impression as you're reading about my father? Did you kind of like start thinking about your dad?
Actually, when I started reading yours, I was actually trying to visualize, you set up this where you run in and you're playing with your dad and he's swinging you around. And so I was actually kind of trying to picture little Lillian, being swung around by her dad. And then you mentioned that even now he's 87. As I was reading that, I was wondering, well, I wonder if Lillian's dad is still with us. And then your next sentence you talk about him being in 87. So I was like, oh, good for her. And, him dancing and being able to twirl you around. So again, I like kind of searching into somebody I know and learning more about them. And I think that kind of gave us a little bit of taste of you and your dad and, the great relationship you had. So I thought that was really, it was fun to read.
It's interesting because it's been a while since I've had that memory. The word, for those of you who will read the article either online or when you get the paper tomorrow, the word is ching chung chang. That is the word that I would run to my dad saying, Daddy, a ching chung chang, Daddy, a ching chung chang. And that was a physical move that he would do. I would jump into his arms. He would lift me up and he would say, ah, ching, or ah, a ching, a ching. That's what he would say, ah, ching. And then he'd bring me to his waist, and I'd straddle his waist, a chung, it was chung, and then he'd flip me and I'd land like an Olympian, chang. And that was the 3-step move. And I remember writing about it because I had no idea, Tim, what I wanted to write about. I really did. And I was dreading because it's like the first time I just didn't wake up and I had this article in my mind. I just had the concept. And I'm like, how am I going to write about a male's perspective of fatherhood? And but you guys were so good about helping me with this. But as I was reflecting on that 3-year-old Lily, I was brought there, Tim. I was like, in my mind, I was squealing like that little 3-year-old as I was writing it. And then it took me to the last time I danced with my dad. And he has a way of flipping me right and left so that I would fall. That was his goal, is to knock me down when he was twirling me. How many times could he twirl me before I just lose my balance and fall to the floor? Well, now I'm pretty strong now, so he has to flip me, and so my goal is to stay erect. And so as I was going through that, I had to stop and just feel the joy of that experience. So I wanted to reach out to you and say, as you were reading that, what is the young or earliest memory you've had of your father? And I want to encourage all of you who are listening right now or viewing to just stop and think about that. What was your first memory of your dad?
Yeah, I can remember some vague memories when I was in my late 3s before we moved to Florida. I can remember some things about my dad up in our house in New York before we moved down here. I was also thinking that's the same age Isabella is now. She'll be 4 next month, my daughter. And, I was thinking, boy, I hope that she has these type of great memories, 20, 30, 40 years from now about her dear old dad, doing these things. And God willing, I'll be with her, of course, whenever those memories come. But yeah, and you talk about, I kind of had a similar thing this month where I knew my concept about what I wanted to write my column about. I wanted to do it about dad. And, I've written about my dad for many years now. I've been writing my column, and on Father's Day, I always try and, give people a little further peek about, who my dad was. And, for those listening, my dad died at age 54 of melanoma in 2004. So he's been gone for quite some time. But, way too young to be taken from us. So every year I write about different things about my dad. And I had the same problem as you, where I was struggling. I was like, well, what story do I tell? How do I tell it? How do I keep it interesting? And I finally got my inspiration as you did. And but yeah, I mean, it's great. And I do something similar that you were just saying, is I ask people in my article, think back about your dad. What do you remember about him? what if he's gone? What do you miss most about him? And I understand not everybody had a great relationship with their
Correct.
dad in life, but, just try and find that one thing, or, the thing that really kind of makes you smile, because Father's Day should be a time maybe to just try and, pull something positive and just remember that. And I have so many great memories of my dad. It's just hard for me to find the right story to tell.
It's interesting. When I was going through my experience as a life coach, it wasn't I went through it again when I was becoming a life coach, but when I went through it as an attendee, I remember having to recall some of these memories for people who have horrible memories, and rewriting the memory and going through this process where you think of the memory as a victim, and then you think of you recall that memory, and you say the story as if you were the victor of the story, like it was all good that came out of that story. And it's amazing how the same story can change its tone just by the way you share the perception of it. Like your goal is, I'm going to share that story of my childhood, or the way I felt like I was manipulated at the dealership and got this extra, to get extra money off of me. But you can rewrite the story. Both stories are true, but how you perceive it is what will fill your bucket full of love or empty it. And it all depends. And so for people who have had a tragic relationship with their father, or a relationship that is not worth even mentioning, just the mere fact that you were given life, that right there can be a start of changing the story of that gratitude. What would you like to, could you add anything to that, Tim? I'm sure you deal with a lot of people and that have had tragic situations as an editor for a newspaper.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think it also brings up something that you wrote in your article. And, I love statistics. I love facts. I'm
I
a
knew you would
journalist,
love this
so I love
article.
numbers like that. Yeah. So, but I think it's just the importance of the father in a home. So all of you dads out there, just so you know the impact that you have on children, fatherless homes, these are statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau, 23.6% of U.S. children, which is about almost more than 17 million children lived in fatherless homes in 2014.
Yeah.
And those children are 4 times more likely to live in poverty, more likely to have behavioral problems, commit crimes, go to prison, abuse drugs, alcohol, 2 times more likely to suffer obesity, 2 times more likely to drop out of high school, and 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. Now, think about all of those things. And how, that's the impact of not having a father, not having that figure, not having that, person there to support you and be your authority figure and your teacher and all of those things. And, mothers that do it are just, it's so admirable, and it's such a difficult job. But, dads need to take responsibility. You hear it all the time, and you've heard it for years in this country. And, it's almost something that they need to teach them in high school or middle school. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to.
But I want to add to that, because there could be a child that grows up in a fatherless home, and that could be the end all be all for their life, right? Or they can take that same scenario and say, not my kid, not my kid. I'm going to learn from my absentee father. So not only did my absentee father give me life, but he taught me what not to do. So right there, we can just start right there with gratitude, because with gratitude, everything we look at can change. Isn't that, what'd you say about that? What would you like to say?
Well, that's a deep part of psychology, I guess I would say. Yeah. One of the hardest things to do is change your mindset. And when somebody's hurt you, or when you hold something against somebody, the hardest thing to do is flip that script. Now, I think you'll find throughout history, the people that have learned to do that 180 are people who have improved their lives and done great things and made themselves better. And the people who, choose to hold that bitterness, it's, something that they carry on their back like a rock their entire life. So at some point, put the rock down, be free, and move on and make your life better.
I know. And I can almost hear the people who have had negative experiences with their fathers say, yeah, easier said than done. Well, you know what? At least we can start with gratitude of being alive, of being given life, because honestly, you could have been aborted. And so even though the mother kind of like holds that, says, okay, this is what I want to do with my body or not do with my body, whether one believes for or against abortion, that could have happened. So right there, that gratitude that I was alive. I am alive today because my mother and my father wanted me. And that DNA, that perfect DNA of that person, that female and that male, created you. If we can just start there, we might be able to start, because, here's what happens, that if we bear this negative anger towards our fathers, that permeates in our body, and we're bound to repeat what they did. And that's so scary, that same reaction, if you are just so bitter about it, you can turn around and repeat that same behavior. But if you release it and you say, I am going to start from a place of gratitude, and then I'm going to allow that gratitude to manifest in my life instead of fester anger, manifest love and gratitude. It's amazing how you can learn what not to do. But I don't want to dwell too much on that, because I think most fathers are wonderful fathers. And so a father can destroy the esteem of a daughter or a son. Either way, just make sure that we do the work and we deal and we heal with whatever relationship we have with our parents, so that we don't keep repeating it. But that's enough about that. With the statistics, it was so funny as I was writing, I thought, if I put in some statistics in my article, Tim's going to love this. So I turned around, I'm like, I'm going to write this for Tim.
I love facts in a column. It's fantastic. Being a dad, though, getting to the good part of being a dad, it's such a rewarding thing, because, obviously there are sacrifices you make. There are selfish things that you put aside. There are things you may want to do that you don't do. But then when you realize that you've put those things aside and you're doing it for this little child, this little life form that adores you and looks up to you. And, when I pick Isabella up from her daycare, usually at the end of the day, they're in a big open room or the gym playing, and she'll see me and she just yells, "Daddy!" And she comes running at me full speed. And, I've really got to kind of brace myself to catch her. But, she'll tackle me, and she's just so happy to see me. And that is just, I can't tell you, that's better than winning the lottery. That just, seeing that day after day, I wish I could just bottle that and open it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you need to bottle it, so when she turns 14 years old and she looks at you and goes, "Oh, Dad," and she rolls her eyes, unleash the genie,
open the bottle.
4-year-old Isabella, absolutely. And so we're going to continue this conversation, but I want to do a side note before we move into the next segment. For all you wonderful fathers, I would love for you to consider becoming a mentor for a child, because it does leave a hole in a child's soul when they have that absentee father, and perhaps maybe you can help fill that void. And we're going to continue our conversation with Tim Walters when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. So we're going to go on to the unscientific poll, Mr. And
I'm glad you mentioned the mentor thing real quick, because we have a great article that's going to be on next week's health section about mentoring. So, the Brevard Public Schools reached out to me recently, and they have some different columnists that they want to write about, subjects that affect teens and children. And so last month they had this woman write this heartbreaking story about her daughter who committed suicide and about bullying and suicide. And this month their article is about mentoring and the programs that help these kids that are in depression and things like that. So we've got a great article coming out, about mentoring. So I'm glad that you put that in there, because that's it's such a timely topic, and there is such a suicide epidemic amongst children, and now amongst Hollywood stars and rich people, and it's mind-boggling.
Well, I really do believe in the whole, you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. And when I say the word responsibility, I am saying it in empowerment and freedom, the victory, the responsibility aspect of taking ownership of our lives. The moment we start numbing and we don't deal with things in our life, and then we start taking these medications, I'm telling you, it's altering the minds of people to the point where they're killing themselves. They're numbing themselves. And, I have never watched this series, but they're like zombies. It's like about zombies. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I don't watch it. Are you talking about The Walking Dead?
Walking Dead, yes. I remember my son, Blake, when he was younger, he couldn't remember to take out the trash. He couldn't remember to, whatever. He always would forget things. But 9:00 Wednesday night or whatever night it was, I remember we were coming home and like without even putting it in his calendar, he would remember when The Walking Dead. And he was trying to tell me what it was about. And I'm thinking, you know what? That's the condition of many people today. They're walking dead.
Yeah.
And we're learning, does art, and that's the segment with Rob Landers, is does art imitate life or does life imitate art? Which comes first? Zombies.
Yeah.
And we're numbing ourselves.
To show you what a small world it is, Britt Kennerly, the writer I was talking about earlier, who did the series on her mom's dementia.
Yeah.
Her nephew is one of the creators of that TV show.
No way.
The Walking Dead. Yeah, so he'll come to Florida. He'll do like signings, and he's been into the Florida Today building before. But yeah, he helped create The Walking Dead, and he's certainly reaping the benefits from The Walking Dead. But I tried watching an episode, and I got through about half of one, and my wife and I were just like, this isn't for us. It's just, I don't know. I didn't see I just didn't see it. A lot of people do. Maybe it just wasn't for me.
When I was a little girl, and I must have been like 6 or 7 at the time. This is gonna date me now. There was a soap opera because my mom used to love telenovelas, but when we lived in Washington or California at the time, they didn't have telenovelas over there. But so there was a soap opera called Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows. I still remember the characters. Barnabas was a vampire, and he was like the head. And that, I don't know how long Dark Shadows, and maybe some of you can respond about Dark Shadows and how long it's been on. But I remember we would sit there and watch this. We were like so mesmerized by it. And so I kind of got a glimpse of that when I was looking at my son, and I'm like, Blake, how can you watch this? And I'm sure, and I can't say my mom would roll her eyes about me watching Dark Shadows because she turned us on to Dark Shadows. So, but telenovelas in Spanish and telenovelas, they end like in 3 months, like these All My Children and One Life to Live and all these soap operas are on for 20, 30, 40 years, and people get so addicted. I haven't watched a soap opera or any of these things in forever. Ever.
So Dark Shadows.
Yes.
Let me be your Wikipedia friend.
Tell me.
June 27, 1966 to April 2, 1971. It was on for 6 seasons.
Wow. And well, it did. And so I remember we would sit there and watch Barnabas.
You can text.
I don't remember anybody else's name, but the vampire, he was cool.
Well, that's a great name.
Barnabas.
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us at whenyouneedafriend.com. If you haven't registered or signed up for whenyouneedafriend.com, why not? Let's do it. This is where we come together and learn from each other. Today's teacher is Tim Walters. Actually, he's my partner in crime here, or my partner in truth, or my partner and editor. So he is sharing, we're dissecting the article as we normally do. That way it gives us more of a different extra thought about just the article, and maybe allows you to kind of like talk with us in your mind, or you can add, if you've read the article, you can add your comments about the article at 407-373-5959. I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where we always have our conversation, our honest, responsible conversation. And the kind of responsibility I talk about is the kind of responsibility that if you create everything, and that's the concept, that we create everything in our life and we take ownership of it, we can create what we want. You can uncreate what you don't want, create what you want. And this is where we have this conversation. We learn new truths. So if you haven't done so already, go to whenyouneedafriend.com. There's so many different ways that we can stay connected. There is, of course, the website, and all the shows are on the website. But I also have podcasts that you can subscribe to: iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify. And also you can go on to, when you become a subscriber, and you can subscribe also on our YouTube video. You can see the on and off the air conversations through YouTube. So sometimes we go deeper into the conversation. Sometimes we can be silly, but for the most part, we go in deeper into the conversation. Things that we can't do or say on the air, we say off the air. So I want to encourage you to subscribe at my YouTube. All you have to do is just click and subscribe. Click and like. When you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, it's a one-stop shop. Go there. There's books that if you want to see what I use in my kitchen and what tools, you can go there and do some shopping as well. So while you are there, I want to encourage you at whenyouneedafriend.com to check out my sponsors. Without my sponsors, this show would not go on. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com, click on my sponsors page, and figure out ways that you can support my sponsors the way they are supporting the show. And finally, I want to make sure that you always feel welcome to call 407-373-5959. That's 407-373-5959. Now, Tim is my guest today, but really he's my partner and editor and chief. He is the one that makes sure that my articles go on without a hitch. And if there's something he doesn't like about them, which he normally doesn't complain very much, then he is the one that has the final say so. So thank you, Tim, for always coming on the Lillian McDermott radio show.
I'm the opposite of Perry White. I won't be smacking my desk with my fist and, yelling out into the newsroom at Clark Kent. But anyhow.
That's true. So one of the things that I shared before, that because I wanted to write the article in the perspective of a son and a father, I sent out 4 little questions for my unscientific pollsters. So do you want to share those questions, Tim?
Sure. For 4 questions and a statement. So the first one was,
Yes.
do you, and so I received a text on, I can't remember what night, Friday or Saturday night.
The night before I wrote the article.
Yeah. Can you answer these and send them right away? And
ASAP.
And so, of course, she asked questions that are difficult to answer, like, right away.
Yeah.
But so the first one was, do you feel valued as a father? Well, that one was easy for me to answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because she's 4.
Yeah, I don't have a teenager yet, so boy, do I feel valued.
When you answer yes and she's 14,
Yeah.
then we have a show. Okay.
2, do or did you have a good relationship with your father? And that one was easy. Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
3, what is or was the greatest lesson you learned from your dad? And that one I had to think about.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think the one thing that I truly learned from my dad is my dad didn't take guff from nobody.
Yeah.
And so I think I learned, my mental toughness. I'm not obviously the biggest person in the world. And in middle or junior high school is what it was called back then. I had a bully try and pick on me, and I stood up to him, and, I ended up hitting a bully once. And, then once you hit a bully, they don't bully you. They go on to the next kid that they can pick on. So, I really learned kind of some of
that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I learned a lot of toughness from my dad. Stand up for yourself, be a man, that type of thing. So I think that was my greatest lesson. Number 4, what is a lesson you hope you have taught your child or children? And again, Isabella is not quite 4, but, I think manners is something we've really taught her. She says, yes, please, thank you. And so, she'll call people with, like, if she was to meet Lillian, she would call her Miss Lillian. I've just taught her little things that teach her to be kind and good toward other people. And then finally it was, please share a single word to describe fatherhood. And boy, I was like, gosh, a single word. So I just said it's wonderful. I think just being a father is a great thing. I love my little girl. She's awesome. And so those were the 4 questions and a statement, and that is how I answered them.
Very good. And I was, it's interesting because as I started getting responses from the people that were from the people I sent the request to, all fathers, all different ages. I knew that yours were going to be yes, 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 because I've gotten to know you through the years that we've been together. But I noticed that not every single one of the people that responded, and I thought this was really cool and the insight of a man. I think that if we as women, and that's why I said I want the answer right away, don't think about it quickly, just send it back. And that's why I waited to the last second. Honestly, I just figured it out. It's like, what I know. So I could say, in my perspective and rewriting the story, I can say that I had it all figured out, and I wanted to give you just very little ammunition or time to really mull it over. But if you would have asked me that, if you would have sent me that text, I would have written like a thesis, 1,000 word. But you guys, it was like, yes, yes, no, yes, this, then you'd say a word. So it was really quick and really easy to translate it into. But for the most part, the responses were brief. And I really loved getting the responses because it gave me a glimpse on each one of these male father figures in my life, and the desires, their contributions, their dreams, aspirations, and where they came from. And I thought through this whole, when I saw what they wanted to be remembered as, it was interesting that none prior, like when they were responding about what they learned from the father, there was none that said unconditional love. There were people that said, I want to teach my children unconditional love. And I thought that was interesting. Would you like to add to any of that thought process?
No, I guess it just wasn't something that kind of came to mind. I guess that's not where my mind went, was about things like that. But also maybe that's also a man thing because, men don't discuss love very much. And, you rarely hear a father and a son say, I love you. Whereas you hear that a lot more between a mother and a son, a mother and a daughter, that type of thing. Or
a father and a daughter.
And a father and a daughter. Yeah. But usually, so yeah, when I thought of my dad, and I do believe there was unconditional love there with my dad, but it just wasn't something I thought of.
Yeah, interesting. But it's like I saw a lot of commonality in many of the responses, but that was one. But one thing that I saw in common with everybody, whether they had a good relationship or not a good relationship with their father, which the majority did have, like, a so-so, they created a new one, not yes or no, it was maybe sometimes. And but they all the respondents, or is that a word? Respondents?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll make it up. They all shared one thing in common: the respect and admiration they had for their father. That came through loud and clear. And so I would love to, the humility, faith, and service to dads. It's just, I wanted to honor all fathers because, fathers don't ask for much. I don't see fathers being like in the front. They're supporters. They have a supporting role. It's rare that I see a father that's like outshines the mother.
Sure.
Can you relate to a scenario where you see a father outshining the mother?
Well, I'd make my wife mad if I mentioned anything I do. No, seriously. But, I did want to say, about dads, though, because I had an older brother. And, my relationship with my father was probably a little bit better than my dad's relationship with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because we had more in common, I guess you would say. My column this month or this week, my Daddy Duty column, is about my father and our relationship and how baseball was kind of one of those central themes where we'd watch baseball together. We'd go to games. And, my brother wasn't a baseball guy. He was into guitars and, long hair and rock music. And, that was something my dad didn't understand. So, sometimes in life, I think we have to remember as children that, we can't always expect dad, to be a one-way street, that we have to have something in common with our dads. And I saw from early on, I think I developed my love of baseball because I wanted something to share with my dad, and I knew he loved baseball. So I was glad I figured that out early in life, and that was something we were able to share all the way through.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that I think that when we focus on what we don't have in common, I think those are the many times where we feel, oh, that we don't have a good relationship. But even if we don't have things in common, we can focus on our similarities. What do you have similar to your father that you would like to maybe boast about as opposed to being ashamed about? So we're going to continue our conversation with Tim Walters of Florida Today when we return live worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. So now we get to have you introduce the segment, Tim, when we come back.
Okay.
And then we can maybe go into our famous acronym. You know,
Sure.
I can't do an article anymore without putting an acronym in there.
Hey, everybody's got to have their thing. That's your thing.
That's my thing. I don't know how
we'll
that
start
happened.
calling you acronym Lily. What does Lily stand for? Living, loving, learning. There are your 3 L's.
Yeah.
Living is loving and learning and yearning.
Well, my actual name is Lillian, so you have to go a little further than that.
Yeah, that's why I kept it short.
Let's keep it short.
Yeah, I wouldn't make you do Timothy. You could just do Tim.
Yeah, okay, I'll do Tim. Maybe when I write. But anyway, I loved with the article. I want to go into one of the things that a similar thread was a sense of work ethic, integrity, humility, faith, and service to their dads. That's one of the things that they admired and respected for their fathers. As far as words that described their feeling about fatherhood and being a father, joy and joyful were at the top of the list. So that was like shared among many. And then blessing, guidance, giving, rewarding, and awesome. Those were other names that also were describing being a father. When you held Isabella in your arms for the first time, did you ever feel that you could have that kind of love to anybody?
No, but I knew that from that second on, I never wanted it to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's all I can really say. I mean, I have tried so hard since really the second I found out my wife was pregnant. But from the second she came into this earth, it was my mission to be the best father I possibly could for her. And I feel as though over the last 4 years, I really have. I can't even look back and say, boy, I should have done this instead of, or I should have skipped this to do that. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. And I'm lucky I have an employer that supports me enough to do that because, my wife being at school and being a teacher, it's hard for her to do the doctor's appointments, if she's sick to stay home with her and, to take her places or pick her up from daycare. So, I mean, I essentially do more of a traditional role of a mom and a dad a lot of the times, but I don't care. I'll do all the work I have to. So
that's great. That's great. It's I see that joy that you have. And again, I don't want to be Debbie Downer or Lily Downer, but as our children get older, and I heard that, and I wrote it in my last article, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. Mm-hmm. As they start, we want to be the best parents for our children. But it's the hardest thing about being a parent is letting go and letting them make some of these choices that are really tough choices. And I've had some parents say, oh, I'd rather them make mistakes while they're living in the house, which my perspective of mistake is growth opportunities. But when you have that child and they're molding themselves, yikes, it's like, you just want to hold on to them a little tighter. But anyway, it's your turn once you hear
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show. This is Tim Walters. I am an editor at Florida Today and Lillian's once-a-month guest as we talk about the article that she presents each month in Florida Today's health section and at floridatoday.com/health. And of course, on her website at whenyounneedafriend.com. You can find her on Facebook. So if you're not reading the article, if you say to us, I can't find it, I may have to reach through the computer and smack you around. No, I'm kidding. But really, there's, you got to check it out. There are plenty of ways to do it. Lillian's always writing and discussing about great and interesting things. So, we really appreciate Lillian and what she brings
Thank
to
you.
us at Florida Today, and for what she does on the radio and for her listeners. So, for the past almost hour now, we have been discussing your article about fathers and the value of a father. And so we've discussed a lot. We've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad, we've talked about the unscientific poll that you've done. But now it brings us to the thing that you've become known for through the article.
Stressful now. I'm known as an acronym Lily.
Acronym Lily. So Lily, our acronym this month is father. So let's discuss it. You break down the 6 letters of father, and what did you come up with?
Well, I took the information that I received from the men that were not only fathers, but that wanted to focus on their dads. And these are some of the words that stood out that I wanted to kind of honor. I'm sure that whoever responded could see themselves in throughout my article. But F is faith. Many of the fathers that responded said that they learned their faith from their father. God first and then family is what I got that theme over and over again.
Yeah, my dad wasn't probably the most faithful as far as faith, as far as going to church and things like that. But we went to private school. He encouraged us to have that kind of faith.
Sure.
Probably something that wasn't instilled with him when he was young, so he wanted us to have that. So, so faith did become important, and I'm still, in my 40s, and I go to church, and I'm starting to instill that in Isabella.
That's right. That's right. And then A is appear. So the trend was attend events, show your children they matter. And I know that you are an exceptional, you're a great example about this, Tim. You were just sharing that off the air and how you are always there for Isabella, mother and father, because of your wife being a teacher. But in the summertime, you get to have that pass. But appear, show up as the man that you are.
And I'll tell you one important story. When I got into high school, I was talking about my relationship with my dad and baseball and how that was a commonality. But in high school, I found a love for basketball, and my dad didn't really care for basketball much. And one summer, I was playing in a summer league game at Merritt Island High School, and all of a sudden there was my dad sitting up in the stands, and I felt 12 feet tall, and I felt like I tried even harder because he was there watching. And I remember when I hit my first basket, you could kind of see him smile. And so, just being there for your kids is such an important thing, and you don't realize how much that means to us until we see our dad up there in the stands.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so we'll move on for T is for teacher. Speaking of that, feeling proud and wanting to impress. T is for teacher. So what I got from that was learn from mistakes, be okay with making mistakes and allowing your children to make mistakes, choose happiness, never give up. Those were some of the theme with the T for teacher. And then H is honest. Be honest. Tell the truth. Have integrity. And you talk about that with your father too.
Yeah. Well, my dad he was somebody that you just knew. He wore his, his emotions on his sleeve, and, very little brain to mouth filter. So even if you didn't like hearing the truth or the honesty, you were going to get
it. Okay. So that was H, honest. And then E, earner. Oh my goodness, that was a big one. Hard work, provide, be self-sufficient, value education, all those, that was like a theme with fathers teaching their sons. What are you teaching your son? What do you want to teach your children? That one was across the board. E, earner. And last, the R. We can't have an R without being responsible. We can't be a father or mother or living on this earth without responsibility. But this responsible came from being thankful, grateful, and loving unconditionally. And that was that's what I learned from, this is the extras, because I use other words throughout, and I kind of weave the words that I received from the men, my special fathers, my superhero dads that helped in the writing of this article. But I was excited to be able to see, the joy that fatherhood brought to these men as well. And I thank you, Tim, for being one of the first to respond to my request ASAP. I knew like Rob Landers was one of the first. He was the first one, Rob Landers of Florida Today. And then you came along and did it as well. And let me tell you, it was so good to see that I was going to get some responses. I did get one person that said that the questions I asked were too personal, and they declined responding, which I thought, that's interesting. And, and then I started thinking about this individual. I'm thinking, I've never asked him about his relationship with his father. And perhaps maybe that was a painful, and for many men, it could be a painful thing. And that's why I wanted to add the pain that fathers can add as well to our lives. And we just have to be careful and choose how we want to show up as a father. Can you add to any of that, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine somebody who's going to say that that's too personal means that they obviously don't want to talk about the bad things. And also, I guess I could say, I've talked glowingly about my dad, but, my dad also had his own personal problems and demons. And those were things that you kind of had to, understand and work through, through my childhood and things. I think a lot of people of that era, the World War II babies, a lot of them had problems with alcohol. My dad was a Vietnam vet. So, there were things that obviously clouded his being, but he also fought through them, to be a good dad for my brother and I. And, so I guess that's what I take away from my dad, being able to, battle, alcohol and battle, the war and things like that. And, he had his struggles, but, at the same time, like I said, he was at my basketball game. We were watching baseball games together. There were times where he probably would have just rather sit on the couch and drink, but he'd go outside and play catch with me. So you could see the fight. The struggle was real. Yeah. And, and that's part of that toughness that I think I learned from him. And,
and go ahead, Tim, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, writing my article this month, and I just always love finding different stories about him. And, I get a little teary eyed as I write about him and how much I miss him, and, how I would have loved for him to meet Isabella, because he loved children, and he was a nurse for a long time too. So he was, a good caretaker and provider and he was a great dad. So, it does sadden me that he's, I can't share these things with him, but, I see the strength that he had, and it's something that's admirable, even through the tough times.
Yeah.
What he did was admirable.
I think that we have got to, as children, give our parents a break. We have to understand that, or we get to understand that we don't come with a manual, and we do the best we can with what we have. And if we take that step back and we say, my parents aren't perfect, but neither am I. And just like they did the best they could, I mean, we don't know what we were spared from and what bullets they took, so to speak, the bullets they took so that our lives were spared. Again, our parents, our fathers can teach us how to be and how not to be. Either way, we can be grateful for the lessons and the gifts of life that we have received along the way. And so that's what I mean. I was shocked when I found out that your father was an alcoholic, because the way you spoke about your father, I would have never guessed that. But that's an example of how we can rewrite the story so that we can say, you know what, I forgive this about my father, and I still love the fact that I was given life, and I loved every moment that I had with them. And so, Tim, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and I want to thank all the fathers. I want to be able to encourage all, whether you're a daughter or a son, to reflect on your relationship with your father and rewrite the story with gratitude. How would the story be different today if we rewrote the story with gratitude of our relationship with our parents? So, Tim, thank you so much for all that you offer, and I appreciate you. Until the next time we meet again, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Lillian. See you next time.
Yeah. And to you, my listening friend, please also know I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job, Tim. This is great. I loved, I'm hoping that people that don't have a good relationship with their fathers, because Mother's Day, they say that that's the number one holiday that people buy cards. Father's Day, not so much.
Yeah, it's the most forgotten holiday, actually. I saw a poll on that too.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
I
Give me
thought
some
of something.
science. Give me some.
Yeah,
Give me
I'd
some
have to look up
stats.
the facts, but right as you were doing your closing, it occurred to me that I wish I would have talked about but didn't, is my father-in-law, my wife's dad,
Yeah.
because he has been a great dad to me for a long time now too. And so, it's very weird. At first, calling him dad was just odd. And now I
Mhm.
feel very comfortable doing it. So,
Well, you're saying it now. You can take this clip, fast forward it to this moment and acknowledge. And my father-in-law again has passed away. He's ascended, as I always say. And I sent my mom, yesterday was his birthday, because Father's Day and his birthday were very close to each other. And so I texted my mother-in-law, who, I'm telling you, they were married 64 years, Tim.
wow.
And I am in such awe of her. And she's a strong volunteer, and she has a network of girlfriends. And one of the things that I had encouraged her to do, gosh, 3 years ago, I'm trying to remember how long, he ascended in 2015, I believe. And I remember writing that article of loss during the holiday, embracing loss during the holiday. And I wrote that article for her. And she still has a conversation with my father-in-law every night. And so yesterday was his birthday. And of course, he's not alive. So I didn't want to say, happy birthday to Dad. But I wanted to acknowledge his birth. And so I wrote to Mom and I said, Mom, I know how you talk to Dad every night. And I just want you to say thank you to him for such a wonderful son. We just have to stop and say thank you to these men. Just like I know that you're in awe of your father-in-law. I mean, look at all the stuff that he's been able to afford you as you're getting your house built, and there's so much that you don't have to give birth to somebody to feel that love and affection. That's why I encourage you to become a mentor, because it does leave a hole in your soul when you don't have a father. And I would say maybe a mother as well. I don't know. I've never heard that statistic, but I'm sure that when you miss a parent and you feel abandoned, it just changes the way you look at life. And things that I would not react to, somebody else who feels abandoned and carries that burden in their heart, that rock that you talk about, might
Mm-hmm.
react to something different, something similar, but differently, because of those feelings that we carry, those rocks that burdened us down. So, but anyway, anything you'd like to add about your father-in-law or any men in your life?
No, my grandfather, he was taken away from us in 2013, but he was 87. He and my grandmother were married 66 years, and she's about to turn 91.
Whoa.
Yeah.
She still have her faculties about her.
Absolutely. Oh, she's sharp as a tack. She still walks on her own 2 feet. She gets a little tired, but she refuses to use a walker. And oh my God, well, the one thing
We need
that
to
keeps
have her on the show.
Oh, she's fantastic. She'll crack you up too, but just have the censor button, because when you get to that age, sometimes swearing is commonplace.
Hey,
But
listen.
we've gotten it out of her, so she doesn't do it in front of Isabella anymore.
Oh.
But she is just incredible. But yeah, when my grandfather died, her health went downhill quick. She got very ill. And then what was it? Just
broken heart
8
syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 or 8 months later, we found out we were pregnant with Isabella, and it breathed new life into her. It was incredible, and she's just been, I guess as good as a 91-year-old can be. Some various little health
Now,
problems.
is she your mother's mother or your father's mother?
Yeah. My mother's mother. My dad. Everyone on my dad's side dies early. So my grandmother on my dad's side died in 1979 or 80 of a massive brain hemorrhage.
Oh.
And my dad's dad died in like 1985 or so. He was only like 61, but he had all sorts of, he was a true alcoholic, much more than my father was.
And your dad died at 54.
54.
Oh, so young.
But then
that would have been me dying last year.
Yeah. But then on my mom's side of the family, you've got my grandmother is 91. My grandfather lived to 87. My mom is going to be 69, and, she looks like she could do laps around the track. So, one side of the family lives forever. The other side of the family checks out way too early. So.
Well, I am sure that you are on the right side of the family. So
I sure hope so.
and we do everything we can to.
Oh, I got a team of doctors. They check everything. They check my kidney, my blood, my, you name it. I want everything checked. I have a skin doctor because melanoma took my dad. I've had just about every mole on my body removed. Just like hack it off. If I don't need it, take it.
Well, be careful. They might come after your heart. So, or do you remember Monty Python? The meaning of life. We come to take your liver. And he goes, I'm not dead. Well, you signed. It's like the Grim Reaper was coming to get the liver. Anyway, just another movie. Thank you, Tim, for everything that you do and for highlighting the column the way you do. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lily. See you in July.
Bye. We'll see you.